summary. I think what I said, one is try to find out how you can use the current situation to accelerate trends and to accelerate the digital HR transformation. I think it's an opportunity. Secondly, key message, don't lose sight of being kind and employee focus. I think that is super important, and we can be brutal, but let's make sure that we also as a profession take that into account. 3, think about personalization. Don't come with measures for everybody everywhere. Try to be focused, try to be razor sharp, and try to be close to what people really want. So take the time to treat your employees and your candidates in a way that you really are interested to find out what they want, and instead of coming always with the organizational objectives. I think, but at the same time, not all the messages are totally congruent. Get close, continue to be close to the business issues. We can contribute a lot, but we should be close to the business and solve those issues, because that's super important also for the companies to live, because there need to be jobs, and there need to be successful companies and organizations.
We're gonna start asking you, because I would like to know more about you in a professional life.
My background is in HR, international HR. In 2014, I founded the HR Trend Institute, and there, we are trend watchers in the domain of people and organization. I write about it, and people can follow me on my blog, hrtrendinstitute.com. I speak about it in conferences, international conferences, and I regularly work with HR teams around the question, okay, what's happening in the outside world and how can you use it in your organization to increase the impact of HR.
So, and now, Tom, I would like, you traveled a lot, you've seen many kinds of companies. What's the main difference, or what are the differences you felt here in Brazil if you compare to Europe, to companies in Europe, since you come from Holland?
Yeah, and it's always very dangerous to generalize. So that's point number one. And secondly, I always like to be in Brazil and to work with Brazilians, because I think compared maybe to the Dutch, I feel at least more warm. I looked up before I saw, you know, the work of Hofstede. I don't know whether you know it, but Gerrit Hofstede, he died a couple of months ago, but he did a lot of research in what are the cultural differences between nations, and there are different dimensions. And one of the dimensions, and I think that's a difference which is important, that's individualism. And the Dutch score high on individualism. We believe we believe in ourselves, and we're not so much. On the other side, it's not so much about the collective doing things together, family, and those type of things. And there, the Brazilians score a lot. You could say, in a sense, lower on that dimension. High on collectivism, lower on the individualism. The other side is masculinity, where surprisingly it's a scale of 100. The Brazilians score 49, but the Dutch only score 14. So we are, you could say, more a feminine type of society, which also, and then that's the last dimension I want to mention is power distance, and that's hierarchy, belief in authorities and things like that. There the Brazilians again score relatively high, and again the Dutch score lower.
So Tom, tell me, what you think is gonna change from the human resources point? What do you think people should take care of?
There are many trends that are mega trends that have been going on for a long time. My view is that many of those trends will not stop, but there's an opportunity that those trends are kind of accelerated in this, you could call it a kind of incubator where we are in at this moment. So some of the trends will be accelerated, or at least there is an opportunity to accelerate. And I will give you a couple of examples if you allow. I already mentioned personalization. And if there's one trend which I think over time is very important, that's personalization. Is, are you able and willing, in the context of an organization, to take the individual needs, wishes, capabilities of people into account? That's easier said than done. And especially in the, you could say, the human resource domain, that's not so easy. In human resources, in the past, long time ago, it was more about rules and regulations for everybody. And not, yeah, if we tailor that and if we take that the individual differences and personalities into account, that won't work. That has changed. You cannot solve situations by being one size fits all. We have to be more, you could say, focused and say, hey, here is a group of people, for example, that really needs to work in the office. So we need to allow those people to go back to the office and do the work in the office. Here's a group of people who really cannot work at home because maybe of their home circumstances, but also maybe because of their personality. And some people have very great difficulty of being alone in a room and doing work. So those type of differences, if we take those into account, we can be a lot more effective in what we do. A second example, a long-term trend is things need to go faster, faster, faster. Speed.
Yeah.
Also, that is in the HR domain not so easy because generally HR is too slow. And slow by nature, you could say, in a certain sense. It always takes too long, and processes are designed in a complex way, etc., etc. We know that, and we're trying to change it. But now, what I've seen in the last, you could say, 2 months, that things that in the past took a long time suddenly are accelerated. Like, and we have all seen it, at least in my environment, working out of home, well, that has gotten a boost. Technology, e-learning, but also these type of meetings as we have them today, that has gotten an enormous boost. And yeah, we are solving it. So we are showing as organizations, as people in organizations, that we can do things a lot faster than maybe in the past. So speed is one of those trends that you could say is accelerating in the current situation. Well, I could go on. Of course, the use of technology is another obvious one.
Yeah, so it's very interesting what you said about the way the people work, to respect and to understand how the people is willing to work after the coronavirus, because some people I think are very used to work from home, are okay to work from home, but all the kinds of people, they want to go back to the office because they have kids at home, because they like to be in contact with other people.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, the point of view of what you were saying, that you should check first, research people around you to check if they are willing to go back to the office or not.
Yeah, but then you have to be, you understand, it is you can't come with rules for everybody.
Exactly.
And that's the difficulty, because you have to personalize. exactly as you say, you have to try to find out what people really want and can do, and that's not only by asking them, but that's also by using clever technology.
Sure, sure.
For example, but I've not seen data yet at this moment, but it would be very interesting to look at the productivity of people and teams at this moment. I'm sure there are people and teams that are less productive in the current situation, but there are also teams and people who are more productive in the current
Sure,
situation.
sure there
Yes?
are.
So
Mhm.
if we know that, and we say, hey, here's a group of people who are more productive. What are they doing differently? Why are they more productive? What can we learn from that group of people? So if we use data also in the current situation, and I encourage everybody to do, I'm sure many of you are doing that, but this is the time to intensify your data collection. Also about how do people feel? That's important anyway. To have a real pulse check on the well-being of people at this moment. How are they feeling? Because you're on a distance. So, but if you use the data cleverly, then you can start to design new interventions, and not. But that requires. Sorry to ramble on, but it also requires, in a certain way, that you are willing to redesign the way you work.
Yeah.
That you are willing to redesign processes. And what I've seen also is that that sometimes people take the old way of working and then they are digitizing the old way of working. For example, we always have a meeting on Monday morning at 10 with the team. Now we cannot do it physically. Okay, now we plan a Zoom meeting Monday morning at 10.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the question is that the solution? Yeah, maybe that meeting was not necessary anyway, or maybe you can find another way to be in touch. Maybe you can do the biggest part of that meeting offline via a good chat group and just connect with each other one time per week. Just check, looking at each other's faces. Hey, Tom, how are you doing? Are you still happy? But if you replicate what you were doing digitally in the past, well, that's not the solution. And the same for, you must be willing to redesign. And this is also the moment. Learning and development. Today I was talking to the CHRO of a big medical company, and we were discussing exactly this point. And he said, yeah, we have stopped our leadership meetings, but now we are bringing them online. But the question is that the solution? Because often many of the leadership meetings in the past were not very effective anyway. So this is a good moment to redesign your leadership and say, what are we really accomplishing what we want in our leadership meetings? And maybe bringing what you did in the past physically to an online session. Yeah, maybe you can do something more creative.
Great. It's very good, because that's this kind of feeling I have many times, that you are really just copying what you do it face to face.
Yeah.
And then we have to rethink the way we are working together from now on, because what you said is, okay, we had meetings 1 hour, 2 hours. If we were face to face, is that was it needed? And it is needed now, right now. So that's the question.
Meetings is a good example, but it requires, for example, the terminology I think is asynchronous meetings. That is, if you have a working space, Microsoft Teams or Slack or whatever you use, and you could say, continuous meetings on those platforms. I could start a meeting around how can we innovate our leadership training. And I can invite 10 people into that meeting, but then I ask everybody, okay, what do you think? And they just start and thinking about it and answering about it. And you have maybe a couple of days to react. So it's not, and in a normal meeting, you would not, and immediately Tom would be there and say, hey, hello, I know exactly what we should do, blah, 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 blah. And other people, they have not even started thinking about the subject. So for many of those type of issues, an asynchronous meeting is a lot better. And then maybe, why not involve 100 people instead of 10? So then you come to kind of crowdsourcing of ideas. Today, there's a lot of technology that you can use to crowdsource ideas in your organization.
After
Not
you're
in
gonna send
meetings.
to us, very good, crowdsourcing. I love that, good idea. Just
And I
wanted
see
to
organizations doing that. We have an issue.
yeah.
And the old way of working is, I exaggerate, I say everything a little bit black and white, is that first the management team starts to think about it. Yeah? And they think about it and they discuss it, and as if all the knowledge is in the management team. And that's not the situation. So organizations that revert it and say, well, let's ask our people in the organization, but also maybe our suppliers, maybe our clients. Let's ask them what they think. Let's ask them if they have great ideas. And then there's technology today that kind of helps you to iterate those ideas, because you start with a lot of ideas, and then you have to condense them, and so, but there's intelligent software that can help you to do that, and you increase the quality of the output. Absolutely.
Very, very good. Tammy is asking if it's possible, well, that we have positions that are working from home, but what do you think about employees that work in field of industry plants? How to keep engaging them if they are working plants and...
Yeah, so I think an enormous amount of people cannot work out of home. So whether they work in factories or whether they work in healthcare or whether they are a bus driver or whatever, that's important. What I see, and I'm telling you nothing new, but here communication is an important element. We know that. And often the communication with people, you could say at the front or in the factory, or is not well organized. For example, many of those people are not sitting behind a computer. So your traditional way of working does not work. But today I've seen organizations, specifically in retail, there are good examples. Retail is also, there's many people working on the floors of the shops, of the big retail stores. The staff turnover is high in those stores. And there they have clever communication solutions. Generally, it requires mobile phones, so that's sometimes an issue. If people don't have a mobile phone, it becomes more difficult. But if people have a mobile phone, you have communication solutions, and that helps people with their most urgent issues. For example, I know in retail, that's often scheduling. At what time do I have to work, or can I switch my duty with someone else? But also in the supermarket, what are the offers of this week? So you communicate to the people, and then they start injecting both messages, but also asking people ideas, asking people pulse surveys. But I'm not saying it's easy, but communication is an absolute part. And secondly, I talked about crowdsourcing. That is not only crowdsourcing of ideas. That's absolutely not only limited to people in offices or people in knowledge type of functions. You can do that quite widely. And that's nothing new. Because that was already happening, of course, in a lot of the quality circles, etc., of the past. Give responsibility to people to come with ideas and to solve problems.
Yeah. And Ricardo Lopes is asking, what HR trends did you foresee in your research earlier this year that we can expect to really happen this year?
Yeah, and
what kind of research, what kind of, not just that, and technology as well, what we are seeing?
No, it's not, but I'll mention a couple of the trends. In the beginning of the year, I published a list of 12. I won't go through all 12 of them, but I mention a few. And as I said, most trends are long-term trends. I talked already about personalization. I also, important longer-term trend, you could say, is employee experience, employee focus, more focus on the employees. Technology, and I also talked about the trend of being kind, and we discussed that a little bit, but let's be kind. And often also in the HR domain, that's not so easy, because we tend to be very functional and very task oriented and very much focused on results and not so much on being kind. And analytics, I already mentioned, but the using analytics in a clever way, that is important. And coming back to technology, what I said at the beginning of this year is, yes, we see a lot of technology in HR, but most of the technology is still, as we discussed earlier, is automating old processes, often standardized. So a lot of money is spent on the big HR systems where standardized processes are automated. That's absolutely serves a function, but now it's time to really use the power of technology to be a lot more adaptive. So use technology in combination with personalization. And I'll try to give an example.
Yeah.
For example, performance management. We all know performance management. And in most organizations, that's still a relatively old-fashioned process. Goal setting at the beginning of the year, mid-year reviews, and somewhere at the end of the year, reviews. Yes? Everybody has worked, most of the HR professionals have worked on processes like that. And we know they don't work very well, to be honest. Yes? But what we now do is we have put that process in the computer and we force people in the workflow. Yeah, that's happening. So good morning, Tom. It's time for your review with Vera. And I think, oh, I don't like to do it today, maybe tomorrow. Yeah. And then the next day, again, my computer says, Tom, you have not done your review with Vera. Well, you even cannot start your computer if you don't do it. And so they force me to do it. Nobody likes that. I don't like it. And Vera, probably you don't like it either because you think, oh, there's Tom again with his annual comments on my behavior. But those processes are standardized. But they can be easily be more, you could say, adaptive. For example, if you have data, then you know the type of manager. You know more about the type of manager. A simple thing is, how experienced is the manager? An experienced manager, you don't need to give him or her a lot of probes. Maybe one signal is enough. Where an inexperienced manager, a new manager, you need to give more guidance and help. Yes? But it's not only, if you have more data on the way I as a manager behave, then you can start to adapt that technology to really help me to do my job better, instead of saying everybody should do it in the same way. Now, I'm coming to the question. So I already said some of the trends will be accelerated. On the other side, I'm a little bit, I have some doubts with some of the trends. For example, what will happen to more employee focus and employee experience?
Exactly.
Is that considered luxury in a sense? And we can expect that in the coming economic crisis, life will be super tough. Huh? There will be a lot of layoffs. There will be a lot of companies that won't survive. There will be a lot of focus on getting back on the productivity levels, because productivity has gone down. And we say people are all doing their work, but productivity has gone down for most of the people. So we have to get back on productivity, and people will be fighting for jobs. And life will be tough also in organizations. So can we find a way, also coming back to kindness, will employee experience and kindness kind of survive? I don't know, but of course my plea is to find a way it's about reconciliation, to be kind and in a sense tough, eh? And be very productive and personalized. But I have doubts, because we know that when life gets tough, and it's yeah, we can talk about employee happiness, but the needs of people are probably on another level. Then they say, do I still have a job?
Yeah,
And whether
exactly.
I'm
That's
happy or
that's the
not,
question right now.
yeah,
Do you still have the job?
yeah.
Yeah. So we
So
got,
some of the trends, but I'm positive. I think this is an opportunity to accelerate many of the trends. But for
yeah.
some of them, and of course, we are not victims. We also, as a profession, can influence it.
Hmm.
And there, I cannot stress it enough, but the analytics part is important. The analytics part is important because if we can prove that more employee focus leads to more productivity, that's a good story. But we have to focus, and we know that productivity will be high on the list for many companies. Getting back to the clients, selling more. So that will be, so we have to find ways that we can show that we are contributing as a profession to help to solve those issues. Not by doing not by doing just what the boss says, but finding clever solutions, data-based, evidence-based.
Can you share what's the most innovative trends and practices of this specific sub process of human resources?
Also in talent acquisition,
Yeah.
the first thing that is happening, and I've seen that happening over the past years, is that we are working more evidence-based and data-driven. So the first question in talent acquisition is, what are we looking for?
Yeah.
What type of people are we looking for? And there you've seen the trend in the past years, that in the past we used to have a long list of requirements and many issues on that list. It was not actually proven that they were important for a position or a career, but we assumed that. So a long list, and then we go out and we look for people who match that list. Yes, that is not very client friendly, and it's not very effective. So what has been happening, that it's more data based these days. That's one. Secondly, what I've seen organizations doing is saying, well, yeah, we can make those long lists of requirements, but we don't know exactly what the future looks like. So we want to hire people, and we want to have people in our organization that are kind of future proof. And you could say, what is important for future proof people that are different elements. Then it has a lot more to do with, often with personality. Of course, you need to have certain capabilities, but so you see organizations more looking to personality. And I say it very briefly, but it has to do, you can imagine, for example, with how good a learner are you? How big is your learning agility? Because if you can learn fast, then you can adapt to new situations and learn new skills and new things.
Very good. Yes,
Yes.
sure.
So learning agility is important, but we know, and there are long lists of future skills, but many of those skills are soft skills. Yes, that's relating to people, being empathic, making sense of complex situations. So one, less specific capabilities. Of course, general capabilities continue to be important, like intelligence, etc. More personality, and also cultural fit. Because cultural fit has to do with, if you have an organization, do people fit in our organization? Do you feel at home? Are you aligned with the purpose of the organization, etc., etc.? And there are a lot of differences. So cultural fit, but cultural fit partly you can also test. And so there are tools you can use to test the cultural fit. So generally, it's going slowly, I must admit, but you see organizations more using solid selection elements, but also, and then I come back to personalization, because in the end, it is less about we define a box and we look for people who fit in the box. The question becomes more, hey, Tom, what do you want? And what fits with you? And maybe we can create something that fits you. Well, not many organizations are doing that today, but if you can do that, then you have a winning solution.
Team. Yeah, and
Yeah.
winning team as well. Winning
And
team as
also,
well.
you use the capabilities of people a lot better.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's not okay. So that has it's a long discussion, but all you see less and less the traditional job profiles, the traditional ways of job evaluation, the traditional way of recruiting. Coming back to the question, they are slowly getting away, and we need to find new ways to do it, and then. Talent will also be more committed to our organization. There is a discipline we can learn a lot from in these days, and that's the people working in health and safety.
Mm-hmm.
And I've worked in for example, I mentioned Arcadis. They have a lot of oil and gas clients. And we know, and mining, you in Brazil, there's mining, there's a lot of energy companies as well. Health and safety is important. And we know that organizations that are very much focused on health and safety, they do a good job. One, they have clear metrics on health and safety, how many near incidents, etc., etc. They have clear processes. They track it, and people, they adhere to the health and safety culture. It's a culture element, which is not so easy to install in the company, but there are companies, and we can learn from those, that really have a very much health and safety culture. That lessons will be important in the short term, also getting out of the corona crisis. Because we need to, it's well-being of people is becoming more and more important. It was becoming more important, but today it's even more important because it also has to do not only with mental well-being, but also physical well-being. Exactly. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that people, when they are working in the factory or when they are driving a bus or when they are in an office, that they can feel safe, that they can feel secure, that they don't feel threatened, that there are processes that people adhere to. I've seen that in the health and safety community and the health and safety oriented companies, they are used to that. So I expect that we can learn a lot from those companies.
The question is, would you agree that many companies have seen spending on well-being as a cost rather than an investment? And how do the companies you work with measure well-being success?
Yeah. I already said a little bit about it, because I think the well-being, again, we can learn from the health and safety. We should try in a way to make things evidence-based. Yeah. And whether it's a cost or an investment, I think that's a matter of a label attached to that. But if we can, by clever analytics, show that well-being is important, and that people who feel safe, that people who feel better, that they also contribute better, that they are more productive, that they deliver more to the bottom line. If we can prove that is very important. And I think that's where it's sometimes lagging in the HR, that we make the connection very clear. And because sometimes the HR people sound a little bit like preachers. The people are important and they should be number one, and it's about happiness, it's about well-being, etc. But at the same time,
you don't connect with the business.
Yeah, the business leaders talk maybe in a different language.
Yeah, they have to talk the same language. Yeah.
You have to talk the language, but you also have to work evidence-based and show, and that is important. And it's not about a belief, but it's about where's the evidence. And of course, we want to work according to. It's also about ethics, and that's another. So some things cannot be put in figures. So there it's the culture and leadership are there very important, because it should come from within as well. That we respect people and that we treat people in a good way, and that should be obvious. But unfortunately, not in all companies that is obvious.
Yeah.
But well-being, I've not answered the question completely, but well-being is coming higher on the agenda. And again, the current crisis gives an opportunity to accelerate, but because we now see at least that the physical well-being suddenly is high on the agenda. And it's interesting. I watched the discussion here on our television yesterday, and I don't have the answer, but that's if we would attack obesity with the same rigor as we now attack corona, then we would solve a lot of issues. But obesity, well, I don't know how it is in Brazil, but that's a big issue in the Netherlands. I'm sure also in Brazil. Yeah, and people die from obesity longer term, not day by day, but a lot more people die from obesity than they die from corona. But do we give it the same attention? Do we take it really serious? Well, at least here we don't. But this is an opportunity. So well-being will be high on the agenda. And so this is an opportunity to really show that we can do things.
And that is an investment. We can show it as an investment.
Yeah, but with a return.
Yeah.
With
we need
a
the
return.
workers. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Investments in return. How do you use lifelong learning in this complex environment right now?
there's so much improvement possible in the learning and development domain. And fortunately, again, we can use the current situation to do that. Tradition, the longer term trend in learning is more, is and the terminology is learning in the flow of work. Try to get closer to the actual work of people and help people in their actual work to do things better. Instead of, and sometimes the notion lifelong learning lacks urgency, because life, and so, okay, well, it's a lifelong, so it doesn't mean anything for me today.
Yeah.
You understand? It's the same with talent management. Talent management is also something for the future, but the question is, how do you make things urgent for today? So that's, bring it to today. That's one of my, always try to bring it to today, because the moment things are not urgent, they get lower on the agenda. Yeah, everybody likes to talk about lifelong learning and talent management, but at the same time they say, well, maybe not today. Yeah, but the movement is learning in the flow of work, and again, personalization, helping people, individual people and teams, to do their work better. So not generalizing, but getting close to what people are doing.
Personalization, exactly.
Personalizing. So in the current situation, this is an enormous opportunity. For example, I take a simple thing. When we talk about these type of interventions, there is already software today that could, for example, monitor me in this presentation and this exchange. It could monitor me. I don't have that software on my computer, so I'm not using it. But if I had it installed, it could already start giving me feedback on the way I'm working at this moment. For example, say, well, Tom, maybe you move too much, maybe you talk too much, maybe you don't ask any question back. Maybe, Tom, it's time to summarize a little bit, because people are, you're talking all over the place. So give me feedback in the flow of work. If we have taped this conversation and we have done this, then afterwards you could have a more thorough analysis. And say, well, Tom, we have compared your presentation with best in class other presentations, and here are areas you can do better. So if you find ways to help people to do their job better, also in the newer situation, based on what they need, I think that is an enormous opportunity in the learning domain. And we know that lifelong learning has to do with the ability to adapt to the new circumstances that are emerging.
All the time.
They emerge fast, but over time, they will continue to emerge. But the development in the learning, and there's an enormous gap between what most organizations are. There's still a lot of one-size-fits-all kind of classroom training. There's a couple of minutes, but I see that a lot, for example, in onboarding. In onboarding, generally you see that it's top down. It's saying, okay, new employees, we know what you need. And we give the new employees what we think that they need, instead of trying to find out what they can bring to the organization and what we can learn from the new employees.
That's very good for the onboarding. Very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
To improve the onboarding experience.
That's a question from Tatiana. Do you think leadership training is a good start? I think, to be honest, to answer that very quickly, most leadership training is a waste of money.
That's true. Exactly.
That people go to nice places, to nice institutes, but the question is, do they change their behavior at work? And everybody likes to talk about strategy and the future, etc. But there's also learning in the flow of work. Do we dare to get close to people and help them to do their job better, also as a leader.
Closer and creative, and
Absolutely.
you know, to give some creativity during this leadership training. And what you think is also important, to give that and to be closer to.
But this is also good times to revamp your leadership training.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I should say, get closer to people, do that more on a personalized level as well. And dare to be brutal in a sense. Because there in many organizations, we know of leaders and managers that are not performing to the standards. Generally, most of the time, it does not help a lot to send them to all kinds of expensive training.
Yeah, exactly. They're not closer. Tom, would it be possible that you give some like short report, that you give the most important thing that you said today, that you sent to me, that I can send to the crowd, to the people?
Absolutely.
Here?
And I will, most of the things I talked, and I know it's super short time, but most of the things I talk about today, I've, for example, written about. So on my website, for example, on the leadership training, on people analytics, on trends in talent acquisition, I've written articles and people can find them. Today I have a Brazilian partner, so there is the leader of the HR Trend Institute, South America, is in Sao Paulo. Yeah. He started to translate some of the articles, so even some of the articles appear in Portuguese. Today it's only 2, but we will extend the base of Portuguese articles. Summary. I think what I said, one is try to find out how you can use the current situation to accelerate trends and to accelerate the digital HR transformation. I think it's an opportunity. Secondly, key message, don't lose sight of being kind and employee focus. I think that is super important, and we can be brutal, but let's make sure that we also as a profession take that into account. 3, think about personalization. Don't come with measures for everybody everywhere. Try to be focused, try to be razor sharp, and try to be close to what people really want. So take the time to treat your employees and your candidates in a way that you really are interested to find out what they want, and instead of coming always with the organizational objectives. I think, but at the same time, last, not all the messages are totally congruent. Get close, continue to be close to the business issues. We can contribute a lot, but we should be close to the business and solve those issues, because that's super important also for the companies to live, because there need to be jobs, and there need to be successful companies and organizations.
We have just 1 minute.
Yeah.
But I wanted to thank you very much, because this time we have many people here, you know, because normally it's a very difficult time, and everybody's here watching and interacting, and we sending questions.
Let's plan another session in a couple of weeks, and maybe a little bit more focused on, because there's so many subjects. That's and I realize we have touched many subjects, but maybe we can tackle 1 or 2 subjects a little bit deeper.
Very good. So if you are open for it,
absolutely, I like it.
Really glad you like it, of course.
Absolutely,
Brazilians.
No, I like it, and I apologize that I was not able to answer all the questions, and that the interaction could have been more. But we learn every time, and we will maybe do it differently next time.
So thank you very much for everybody, and I hope everybody liked it. And thank you. Bye-bye, everybody.
And the recording will be available afterwards. I will edit it a little bit. All right. Yes. Take care. Bye-bye.